Hello and welcome back to Med Indian. This video is part 2 of the NEET strategy video, and if you are new here, do check out part 1 of this video in the description. In this video, we'll start off with how to tackle difficult subjects. First part is to identify which are the subjects that you are weak at, which are difficult for you. Initially, you might feel that some concepts are difficult, but once you finish listening to the classes or reading the notes, the factual parts become more difficult because you need to remember them and they need repeated revisions. First of all, coming to anatomy. Anatomy, if you're finding anatomy difficult, would suggest listening to Dr. Ashwini sir's DBMCI videos, or Azam sir is also supposed to be very good. Ashwini sir makes anatomy very easy through line diagrams. This is how Ashwini sir's notes look like. These generally have line diagrams and easy to remember if you're a visual learner, and easy to revise in the end as well. The questions in ANAT are being asked as an integrated clinical question, like either linked to ortho surgery or neuro ANAT with medicine cases. Pure ANAT was basically pure ANAT questions in 2022 NEET were mostly from histology or embryology or images and identification of marked structures. Anatomy is mostly full of diagrams. It would be better if you can either go for printed notes with images, or you can make your own digital notes. If not, use anatomy. You can even use anatomy atlas like Netter or something for understanding the relations better. So this is how you can use digital notes. You can add all the previous year questions to your notes, and you can view them along with your class notes. Next, coming to factual subjects like PSM, biochemistry, pharmac, etc. You need to remember a lot of classifications, cycles, enzymes, drugs, and side effects. And for these, I would definitely recommend mnemonics by Nikita ma'am. You should check out the NF100 classes and the Telegram group and YouTube and Unacademy mnemonic videos. It really makes the subject easier to remember. For pharmac, even Dr. Gobind Rai Garg GRG also has some amazing mnemonics. One of the examples of Dr. Nikita ma'am's classes, this is of the electron transport chain inhibitors and the compounds that are inhibiting the complexes. So here you can see all the mnemonics that are there, and these are very easy to remember instead of remembering them by memorization. For cycles and classification, one more trick that you can use is you can record your own voice, read them out, and make it a point to listen to it every day before going to sleep. Something similar to remembering lyrics of songs. This would be going into your long-term memory because of spaced repetition. You can use the same technique for PSM committees and functions of ASHA, different criteria for subcenters, national programs, and functions of various organizations, etc. Then Anki. Anki for active recall and spaced repetition. There are people who have already made decks based on marrow pearls or prep ladder notes or question banks and shared it with everybody. You can definitely check that out at subreddit MedSchool Anki India. This is how Anki works. For those who are new to this, it's a free app on Android and Windows. You have to pay for the iOS version though. It is based on active recall. That is, the answer is hidden so that you can use your memory and remember and recall that. And based on whether you can you are able to recall the answer to the question or not, you can choose how you you can choose either of these options. You can choose when you want to see the card again. That is spaced repetition. You can also add the related explanation, related topic like this, so that the surrounding topics of the previous year question is also covered, and you can have a quick run through of the topic in one place. This Anki deck is the previous year questions deck made by Dr. Suhaib, and a big thank you to him for having let us use what he had made with so much effort. So this has both the previous year question and the previous year topic associated with the question all in one place. So based on if you can recall the answer or not, you can select when you want to see the card again. So this is how the deck, the card looks like when the answer is not seen. You have to recall the answer, and when you say press on show answer, it shows the answer along with the explanation and the surrounding topics. That was about Anki. If you're not that good with tech or you don't want to complicate things with Anki, you can also use the sticky notes for the same. You can stick it in front of your study table or on the wall and glance through it once in a while whenever you're bored or whenever you get up or at some point in the day. Then One more thing about the mnemonics video, add the mnemonics video in a separate notebook if that is what suits you, because ma'am usually includes the previously asked topics as well. So add anything important that you find important from your notes to the mnemonics notes, and make this the concise source that you'll revise again and again. We mostly remember the mnemonics but forget what they meant, so it is important to revise the mnemonics also. So read them like you read your 20th notebook, 30 minutes every day. Then very important, don't keep difficult subjects pending till the end. Like thinking that you'll give more time once your everything else is done, everything else will never get done, and it will become tougher with lesser time and more stress when the exam is near. And you need to tackle what is difficult as soon as you know that it is difficult. So it is important that you don't keep difficult subjects pending till the end. Revisions. You should ideally finish one reading along with making of your notes for the subject wise test, DT, etc. This has been already mentioned, discussed in the first part of this video. This you will find the link in the description. Do check that out because you will not understand what I'm talking about. The timeline of the revisions or the reading would be once before the SWT, once before the cumulative test, once before the GT if possible. Of course, you cannot read the entire thing every time before a GT, but the ideal thing would be to go about at least one reading along with making of your notes. Just about 1 month before INI would be the ideal thing. Then keeping around 30 days of left before for revision before INI CT. Then even if your aim is not INI CT, give it a very good attempt, because we generally tend to be the most productive before exams, and it will surely help in covering more in lesser time. That is like the Parkinson's law. First reading and first revision will take more time, so don't worry if it is taking a little longer for you to study, because each person reads and understands at a different pace. Quality is more important, and it is if your first reading is good, you will take much less time in your subsequent revisions. The idea is to reduce the time taken to cover everything by half every revision cycle, such that you can fit in a quick run through of the subjects in the last 10 days. And use different colors or codes to highlight and revise when you revise each time, so that you'll know what to concentrate more on in lesser time in the end. And use active recall while you're reading through your notes. Close your notes and recall what you have read. Try to label them on your own in your mind, or on a piece of paper. Just scribble everything. You can also try quizzing your friends about what you have read. You'll remember these the longest. Sometimes we do end up having backlogs, and it is okay to have backlogs. Most people have backlogs, but the point is to not worry too much about it, but keep working towards completing what best you can. It is okay to not watch each and every video, especially if you already know the concepts or you have already made the notes. Next, use your old notes. There are people who have gone for classes in third and fourth year, or who would have already seen online platform, seen and written notes from an online platform. And if you already have the notes, please use them. If you had attended classes, please use them. Many people did not use their old notes, thinking that it wasn't enough or it is too old. But it is important to read those notes and attempt previous year questions, and add if there is any previous year question that is missing. It is important to revise than to keep adding information. So best way to go forward if you already have old notes is to see all the previous year question discussions. Most platforms have these videos where they discuss the questions that were asked and the surrounding topics, because they couldn't recall the exact question. So see those videos that are good and add them to your notes, and that will save a lot of time for your revisions. Analyzing the previous year pattern. So here we are talking about the pattern, exam pattern. This is as important as studying for the exam, because you need to get an idea of what is being asked, what is expected of you. Even though they do not repeat the questions at all, especially in NEET. In INI they do repeat questions, previous year questions, but in NEET they do not repeat the questions as such, but they have this pattern that they follow, that the examiner follows to set the questions. So the paper in 2022 was heavy on clinical case-based questions, or they were all long stem questions, and it had a lot of image-based questions. So it is important, make sure that you attend Vibe or DVT or Snapshot or whatever the image-based discussion that your coaching conducts. And it's also kind of like a quick revision of all the topics with the images, so that will be very helpful. Then 2022, the NEET questions had a lot of overlap of subjects. That's basically how clinical practice is. So that if you're a fresh intern, it is easier for you to solve these questions. The surgery questions were basically a combination of anat and radio knowledge, and medicine was basically your pharmac, patho, and micro knowledge. Even though there's no more a clear demarcation for the number of questions in each subject, the weightage pattern for the subjects have remained similar. The subject marked with green here have had a decent share of the paper. So people who had revised subjects like OBG, PSM, microbiopharmac, etc. in the last 10 days would have them in the recent memory, and they could do much better than people who hadn't touched them in some time. It is better if you can include the higher weightage subjects in the final revision, especially if you have put in a lot of effort in reading them before, and a bit of reinforcement is all that is required to remember everything again. Medicine is very vast, and covering pharmac, micro, and patho covers a huge chunk of it as well. Next, a lot of people keep asking this question if it is fine to leave a subject because it has less weightage. Don't leave any subject untouched. The point is, the subjects which have lesser weightage are generally the short and sweet subjects that need lesser amount of your time and effort. So in a competitive exam, it's not just about you. If most of the people are scoring easily on an easy topic, your rank is going to get affected. So better to at least cover those subjects through either rapid revision videos or notes and previous year topics of such subjects if there is lack of time. If you haven't already seen Dr. Milind Shinde's video about rank building, rank deciding subjects, do check that out. It was very useful. Common difficulties. These are some things that most people face. This segment is basically to let you know that it's okay to be stuck, not to be able to follow your schedule to the T, and okay to even take a break once in a while when you feel too burnt out. This is to emphasize the fact that you should not worry or stress over these phases during preparation, because most people feel these at some or the other point. It is important to bounce back every time and find solutions to your problems. Initially, sitting through the entire day of classes while also making notes was very difficult. It takes a while for you to get consistent, one or 2 weeks to build a habit. Later, you might feel that reading your notes or solving MCQs after listening to classes for hours on end, this is definitely difficult and draining. So one solution that you can try is reading over the phone with a friend who is using the same resource. Thanks to unlimited free calls nowadays, the goal is to finish as much of that day's notes as possible. So reading with someone else keeps you accountable. It will be faster. You can finish your portions of that day faster, and you can also teach or quiz each other and make it more fun. But ensure that you have the comfort or the same wavelength and similar speed of reading as your friend. And also, it is important to not get deviated and go off track. Next is MCQ practice and GTs. Everybody initially feels that GTs are difficult because you're not getting good marks in the initial phases because you've not completed the portions, you've not done one reading. It is kind of like a positive feedback loop when you start getting good marks in your GTs. When you start doing well, you feel like improving and getting better. And you can always see the leaderboard, see how others are doing, your friends are doing, and get motivated to improve yourself. Challenge yourself to do better every GT. And I have seen a lot of questions regarding GT review and how to save time. In the initial phases, it is better to read the explanation that is given completely. But once you're done with the one reading, GT review starts feeling like it is taking a lot of your time. So you can review the questions that you have guessed, the unanswered, and the wrong questions thoroughly. The rest of the questions, read only the highlighted parts in the explanation, like the explanation of most tabs have highlights, or they have the most important points written in bold. Then you can read only the highlighted points, or one more thing you do is apply the subject wise filter and read from your notes for better visual memory. Like you see the question from the question, read the explanation from your notes so you have a better memory. The productivity curve. Let's face it, we are not machines, and nobody can continuously and consistently follow everything that they have planned in the entire span of PG prep exactly how they want it to be. There are going to be some really good days. Some days, due to some or the other reason, you might not be able to read as much as you wanted, or you might not be able to touch your books on some days. Everybody will have these days because it's a long process. It is important to minimize either of the extremes and work consistently. Like there is no point in reading for 19 hours a day and then being so happy that you don't end up reading the next 4 to 5 days. There is no point in doing that. The consistency is the key. And also it is important to not let a bad day ruin your mood, ruin your schedule for the rest of the time that is available. But also when the rhythm gets disturbed, it is important not to overthink about it. It's important to not let a bad day turn into a bad week. It is important to wake up, reset, and go again. I used to make this mistake of putting really tight schedules, and if I couldn't do what I had thought of, I would further waste time thinking about how I wasted time. So this is basically going to waste more of your time and is going to be of no use. Don't fall into this trap. Don't run behind too much information. Many people end up doing this mistake because FOMO is massive. With so many resources available, you are going to feel that you're missing out at some point because there are so many messages on Telegram, there are so many groups on Telegram, there are so many resources. This thought is mainly because we think that what we already have is not sufficient, especially when some GTs and question banks are so tough and they'll make us feel like there is not enough covered in our notes. But it's almost impossible to know everything in all 20 subjects. That's the reason why everybody stresses on high yield topics and previous year topics. Unfortunately, it is generally too late when we realize that we have been wasting too much time in collecting or holding information instead of focusing on reinforcing what we have already learned. The most important thing is to revise what is there. It is not about how much information one has in their books, but how much information is there in our memory, in our brain, and how much we can recall. Revision of crisp and concise notes is the key. Building the skill of MCQ solving. The most important thing is eliminating options. Exam taking ability is more important than knowledge. Of course, knowledge is important, but because now everybody has the same resources and more or less similar strategy. What actually matters in the exam is how calm you are, the composure on the day of the exam, and your ability to eliminate options even if you don't know the exact answer or the direct answer. In the exam, if people end up not doing well, it is not because they did not know the topics at all. It is mostly because two options are too close and it is difficult to choose between these two, or you have not revised enough to recall the exact answer, so the two options are sounding very similar. Or the other thing that most people do is jumping to the answer without completely reading all the questions, the entire question and all the options also. It is always better to use the elimination option method than select the correct option method. Pre-PG has the special feature that is there where you can eliminate the options, and they give you points based on points, or the RI is also based on RI is readiness index is also based on your ability to eliminate options. So you can always use that option to make sure that you're eliminating options and learning the art of eliminating. One more resource that helps in approaching MCQs is Dr. Nikita Ma'am's KBMD episodes, wherein she discusses how to solve a question, how to solve even if you have never heard about the topic or if you are confused between the options. For example, in the INICT 2022, there was a question about CD markers of NK cells. Most commonly, we read about the CD16 and CD56, but these two were not in the options. The options were entirely different. But it had CD3 as one of the options, which, if you have read, you will know that it is a T cell marker. And the CD25 was one of the options, and that if it is, if you have read pharmac, there are anti-CD25 drugs that are available. So it is an interleukin 2 and interleukin 2 marker, or it is a regulatory cell marker. And now the confusion is between two options, CD94 or CD68. CD68 is a marker of macrophages. But in general, if you are here, come to this point where you have eliminated two options, you can go ahead with guessing one of these. you have read thoroughly and you know that CD68 is a macrophage marker, you can go ahead with selecting the answer as CD94, even though you did not know that CD94 is a marker of NK cell. Next is using the guest tracker. Using guest tracker and flagged question, guest tracker in marrow questions and flagged questions in pre-PG if you're using it. This is to get a good idea about your percentage of corrects from guesses. By guesses, I mean those questions in which you were able to eliminate one or two options, and this guessing rate, if you know it beforehand, it will help you to decide the amount of risk you can afford to take while answering the question, especially in NEET, where you cannot be too aggressive because your negative marking will decide your rank as well. In INI, it is recommended to be a little more aggressive in your approach towards the questions because the number of seats are less, and if you're not getting below 1000 rank, there are no chance. It is almost equivalent to not qualifying. So in INI, it is better to go have a little more aggressive approach. But with NEET, you have to know how good your guessing ability is. So try to understand your guessing rate and guessing pattern well beforehand during each GT. Analyze your GT really well and know where you can go more aggressively, in what type of questions you are getting those guesses right and what questions you are always getting them wrong. Before we end this video, you need to remember that this phase is definitely tiring and it comes with a lot of uncertainties. It is very easy to get worked up about marks and ranks and also get demotivated after having a bad GT or a bad test. Just remember that this is after all just another exam and it does not define you. I know a lot of people who are having panic attacks, who are on medication for depression. Do not think of this exam as a matter of life or death. All of us are already doctors. Remember the fact that we have already gone through a lot of such exams, and this is just another exam. If you take it too seriously, or if you are always obsessed about getting an amazing rank, chances are that you are going to get bogged down by your own expectations. Don't let that happen. Enjoy the process. And if at all you are feeling depressed or burnt out, do reach out to your seniors or family members or a psychiatrist or a counselor who can help you get out of that phase. Do not neglect your mental health. Your mental health should be given utmost priority. Do not consider this as a matter of life or death. This is just another exam and you will sail through this. So that is it for today's video. Hope this video is of some help to you. If you find it useful, do consider sharing it with your friends and subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching.